Today, I'm physically weaker than I was, but mentally, I'm stronger. Spiritually, I'm stronger. And I think that's a trade I'd make every single time.
What's going on, pursuers? Welcome to The Pursuit of Calling, the podcast that provides you with the strategies and tools needed to successfully discover and pursue your calling. Whether it's through inspiring stories, thought-provoking interviews, or quick, insightful episodes on personal growth and development, we've got you covered. I'm your host, Thomas Carney. Enjoy the episode.
A few years ago, if you had asked me how I was doing, I probably would have measured it by things you could see. How much I could lift, how strong I was, how I looked, how fit I was. You know, a lot of my identity was tied up in what you could see on the outside. Then muscular dystonia entered my life. And suddenly I couldn't train the way I wanted. I couldn't push my body the way I used to. And I'll be honest, I didn't handle it well at first. I didn't want to accept the new limits that were on my life. However, I had a choice. I could spend all my energy grieving who I used to be and what I used to be able to do, or I could start becoming who God had created me to be. Looking back now, I think God was teaching me the law of the ladder long before I ever read about it in a book. Because the law of the ladder is really about building good character. And good character is built on the inside long before it's seen on the outside. John Maxwell says character growth determines the height of your personal growth. And I think God calls people long before they're ready. Look at Moses, with a speech impediment and a lack of confidence to do the things God was calling him to do. And yet he used him to lead the Israelites. Look at Peter, who denied Jesus 3 times and ended up being used to be one of the biggest proponents for the Christian faith. Look at David, who suffered with lust and took Bathsheba into his bed, killed her husband, and yet God used him in the line of Jesus and to continue to be the king over the Israelites. But I do believe your character determines who you're becoming while you're growing into the calling God has for you. And that's what I want to talk about today. Now, in this episode, there's going to be what I'm going to call rungs. Instead of points, they're rungs. Stay with me. So there's 5 rungs on this ladder. Rung number 1, the inside always influences the outside. One of my favorite ideas from this chapter in the 15 Valuable Laws of Growth about the law of the ladder is the difference between character and reputation. Reputation is what people think about you. Character is who you actually are. The outside does eventually reflect the inside. For me, dystonia forced me to stop focusing on myself on the outside. And honestly, God ended up saving me from myself. But hear my heart. I'm not saying God did this to me, but that he's using the muscular dystonia for my good. I cared a lot about being physically strong, and there's nothing wrong with fitness and nothing wrong with striving for good health. But I had started putting too much value on what people could see. And God used a difficult season to start developing things in me that people couldn't see. My faith, my perseverance, my dependence on Him, and my character. Today, I'm physically weaker than I was, but mentally, I'm stronger. Spiritually, I'm stronger. And I think that's a trade I'd make every single time. In other words, I used to care more about how strong I looked than how strong my character was becoming. Wrong number 2. Humility means staying teachable. one of the things that John Maxwell talks about in this chapter is humility. And if I'm honest, this still is an area where I'm still growing, where God is still growing me. I like figuring things out on my own. I like solving problems by myself. I like having good ideas and then implementing my own good ideas. But recently I was humbled by a friend of mine, Zach Thomas, who suggested I pursue a sponsorship opportunity with our church's podcast Off the Record. The funny thing is, that idea wasn't mine. And at first, I hadn't even considered that as a possibility. But it was a good idea. So I reached out, and now we're working through what that opportunity potentially could look like. And this reminded me of something John Maxwell says. An idea doesn't have to be your idea to be good. That's from the law of collaboration in actually the 16 undeniable laws of communication. God can use anyone to teach anyone anything. The question is whether we're humble enough to receive it. And if you're enjoying this episode, I want to take a quick second to tell you about something I'm really excited about. One of the things I've learned through leadership, coaching, and my own growth is that growth rarely happens alone. John Maxwell talks about accountability, about teachability, about surrounding yourself with people who will tell you the truth. That's exactly why I created the Pursuers Circle. It's a community of Christian men who want clarity, growth, accountability, and a group of guys who are serious about becoming who God is calling them to be. If you're in a season of growth and you're looking for other men to grow alongside, head over to circle.pursuitofcalling.com to learn more. Okay, now let's get back into the episode. Wrong number 3. Growth requires humble leadership. Years ago, Amplified Church gave me an opportunity. They gave me a part-time role with the title East Campus Production Lead. There was just one big problem. I didn't know how to lead. I knew a little bit about production. I really liked technology. I knew how to get things done. But leadership? People? That was different. And that title forced me to ask a question. If I'm going to be called a leader, am I actually becoming one? That's when I started reading John Maxwell. That's when I started studying leadership. That's when personal growth became intentional for me. Now, I wasn't perfect. I got frustrated with people. I misunderstood things. I still had to learn a lot. But somebody saw leadership potential in me before I saw it in myself. And that opportunity pushed me to grow. And sometimes God gives us more responsibility before we feel ready for it, because it's that responsibility that develops us, it stretches us into who God is calling us to be. So whenever you get those opportunities, take it and run with it. Rung number 4, people matter. One of the rungs on John's character ladder is simple. Like I said, people matter. And honestly, this one challenges me. Because I naturally gravitate towards goals, not people, projects, tasks, checking things off a list, doing things myself, or asking others to help me accomplish my tasks along the way. But Jesus modeled something different. He didn't come to be served. He came to serve. He put people before productivity, people before position, people before prestige. And that's something I'm still learning. When people interact with me, do they walk away feeling valued? Or do they walk away feeling like I valued what they could do for me more than I valued them? That's a character question. It's a question that you should be asking yourself. Rung number 5. Character is forged, not given. The law of the ladder isn't called the law of the law of the escalator for a reason. Nobody gets carried up. Building a good character takes work. It takes perseverance. It takes pain, which is why this chapter connects so well to last week's Law of Pain episode. Pain often reveals what's already in us, but it also shapes who we're becoming. Some of the greatest character growth in my life came through seasons I never would have chosen. And yet, looking back, I wouldn't trade those seasons and what those seasons have produced in me for anything. So here's the question I want to leave you with this week. Who are you becoming? Not what are you building, not what are you accomplishing, not what are you chasing. Who are you becoming? Because long after accomplishments fade, promotions disappear, and opportunities come and go, your character remains with you. God is far more interested in who you're becoming than what you're building. And maybe the growth he's doing in you today is preparing you for the calling you'll walk in tomorrow. And until next time, keep your pursuing your calling. Do it well. But before you go, if you're finding value in this conversation, make sure you're following the Pursuit of Calling wherever you listen. You can find the podcast on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. And if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, I'd be incredibly grateful if you leave a rating or review. And if you're watching on YouTube, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss future episodes. And if you know someone who's in a season of transition, wrestling with purpose, or trying to grow into the person God is calling them to be, consider sharing this episode with them. That's how this message will spread and it helps more people discover their God-given calling. Thanks for spending part of your day with me. I'll see you in the next episode.